He's asking me this question again. Got it.
Okay, so all right, so we have the recording going, we have the live stream going. I'm just letting Commissioner O'Donnell into the meeting here. And we are ready to begin whenever you are, Chair McGriff.
We'll give Mr. O'Donnell just a minute more to get on. I would not want to exclude him because I will get some grief. I need.
There he is.
Thanks for waiting.
Absolutely. You don't even need to ask. All right. I will go ahead and call the Wednesday, June 2nd, 2001 Urban Renewal Commission meeting to order. It is now, according to Google, 6:04 p.m. I want to thank all the commission members for being available. I know we'd probably rather be poolside somewhere, but you are helping further the business of the city along, and it is much appreciated. Would you please call the roll, Katie?
Yes, Commissioner Doug Mealy.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Sean Cross.
Here.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
And Chair Denise McGriff.
Here. Do we have any citizens who are interested in providing comments to the commission this evening?
We do have one registered comment for citizen comment, and then we do have one registered comment for the public hearing. So the registered comment for citizen comment is Liz Hannum, and I will ask her to unmute, and she can begin by stating her first and last name and city of residency when she's ready.
Hi, this is Liz Hannum from the Downtown Oregon City Association. I got a chance to listen to last night's Urban Renewal Commission meeting today, and I wanted to show DOCA's support for the continuation of the Urban Renewal Commission and its collection of funds. In all the other communities I've worked in, the primary goal for TIF is to increase the property values of the district. With that said, we can certainly acknowledge the Urban Renewal's opponents' concerns on some of the projects completed in the past. But I also want to remind the public, the opponents, and the commission that TIF funding has made massive improvements to our downtown properties. Without those projects, we would likely not have been able to attract the fantastic businesses that have been able to support themselves through the last year and a half of a pandemic. I have also regularly spoken with developers who would love to work on urban renewal properties in downtown, which would not only hit the goal of increasing property values, but would also help to connect the historic downtown and the budding activity in the north side of the downtown district. DOCA is also particularly interested in supporting upper floor housing. A built-in customer base for our businesses and restaurants could be really significant in helping to recover from the pandemic. DOCA will be hosting a workshop for downtown property owners paid for by our state Main Street program and the Transportation Growth Management Department at the state later this month, with experts in adaptive housing downtown, adaptive housing projects in downtown. We'll also be working on a survey of the community to understand the market for upper floor housing. The reason we don't have housing downtown yet is because it is cost prohibitive for those property owners. With the possible move of the courthouse and the following exodus of about 200 lawyers renting office space in downtown, we desperately need to work now to prepare these properties for a different type of use, or else property rental rates will plummet. I encourage you to vote yes on tonight's budget and use the strategic plan for urban renewal to let the community, and especially the opponents of urban renewal, know that you have heard their concerns through activity intended to increase property values and through the financial support for really important projects like housing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz, for that comment. And I presume that was an affirmative support by Cece, that barking in the background.
Yes, definitely. She was very excited.
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing that Ms. Riggs says we don't have anybody else under just the general citizen comments, I will go to our next agenda item, which is we have a public hearing on resolution UR 2101, adopting the urban renewal budget, making appropriations and declaring tax increment for 2021 through 2023 biennium. So I guess we will, since this isn't land use, I don't have to go through the ex parte or anything of that sort, do I, Ms. Richter? So perfect. So I would like to, do we have a staff report, Mr. Conkle, before we open the public hearing? Or do I open, no, let me open the public hearing and then ask you for your staff report. So we'll open the public hearing.
Thank you. Evening, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. On May 20th, 2021, the Urban Renewal Budget Committee reviewed the proposed 2021-2023 biennial budget. At the meeting, the committee approved a total budget in the amount of $9,701,811 and requested the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing the taxes under Section 1C, Article 9 of the Oregon Constitution and Oregon Revised Statute, Chapter 457. The total budget amount of $9,701,811 approved by the Budget Committee does not contain new projects. It includes payment for costs to administer the agency, rental expenses, and $8,909,811 operating contingency for future consideration by the Commission. Staff is recommending approval of resolution number UR 21-01, a resolution adopting the urban renewal budget, making appropriations and declaring tax increment for the 2021-2023 biennium. That concludes my staff report, and be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Conkle? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and take public testimony. We will ask for person's name and their city of residence. Obviously, most of them are going to be Oregon City, and each person will have 3 minutes. So I see we have Mr. Williams, who is waiting to be let into the room.
He is in the room now. He can unmute, and if he would like to turn on his camera, he can do so. And if he could just begin by stating his first and last name and city of residency for the record, and I will start the timer.
I wish I could unmute. Here we go. Let's see if I can turn on the video. Oh, my goodness. Sorry, I'm not good at this.
That's okay.
see
Thank
you.
you, John.
You're good.
Yeah, you're fine. We can hear you and see you.
Okay. Well,
Okay, so he's going to start the timer.
my name is John Williams. I'm a resident of Oregon City, and I'm here to urge you not to adopt the budget as proposed by the Budget Committee. The amount of $792,000 is recommended on agency administration, legal consultation, rental expense, operating expenses. They're all highlighted on the budget highlights. I say that because they're illegal charges. Property tax diverted by TIF, whether new or leftover in the urban renewal special account, can only be used as described by the Oregon State Constitution, by the Oregon Revised Statutes, and your own current plan. By law, TIF funds can only be used to pay indebtedness incurred by urban renewal projects. Therefore, the proposed spending of $792,000 from the special account is not legally permitted. And I think you all got the copy of the notes I wrote, so I won't repeat the phrases from the Constitution or the statutes or your own plan. However, I find that amazing that it's there and you're still not following it. But I do want to call your attention again to the Urban Renewal Association guidance. This is your fellow members of other urban renewal agencies were saying on 2 places in their manual, it is important to remember that TIF revenues do not equate to dollars available for projects. TIF revenues are used to pay debt service on debt that pays for project costs. And they say the same thing on another page too. Also, I'm hard to express my regret that you're going to collect the full amount next year in TIF that's allowed to you because you have no projects. In fact, your own piece of paper says there are no anticipated principal and interest costs for the next biennium. So why would you want to take 500 grand from the fire department or $1 million from the city or $1 million from the school and put it in the bank when you have nothing to spend it on? So I do not think you should tell the assessor when you submit your budget that you want the full amount. You should close it out at zero. This is not a threat. Somebody said one day that they think you're threatening them, but I'm not. This is just a law. The consequences of unlawful spending. The penalties for unlawful spending on public money are established by OR 294-100, which says it is unlawful any public official to expend any money in excess of the amounts or to any other different purpose than provided by law. Also says the public official shall be civilly liable for return of the money by suit of the district attorney of the district or by any taxpayer in such district. So a citizen, me or somebody else, can bring suit against your expense if it's illegal. And you may not agree with me, but I don't see how you can ignore the advice of your fellow members and fellow UR committee. And just in conclusion, I kind of mixed up here a little bit, but the law is certainly clear to me. And whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, or somebody there doesn't agree with it, as a commission, you owe the public a statement or at least an explanation of how you, the commission or management, determines that spending TIF on those administrative costs is legal. All I get is a stonewall when I ask that question. No one seems to answer, how can you do this if it says right in the Constitution and in the ORS laws? So that's my conclusion. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, John, for your comments. Ms. Riggs, do we have anybody else that's interested in testifying this evening?
We do not. Thank you.
Okay. So we're done with public testimony at this particular time. So I will turn it back over to the Urban Renewal Commission for their deliberation. Do we have anyone that's interested in, any of our commissioners interested in making a comment? Mayor Lyle Smith.
Yes, we need to close the public hearing before we deliberate.
Yeah, we don't have anybody else, so
Yeah.
public hearing is officially closed.
All right, thanks. So I guess a couple of things. I would like to hear from Mr. And or Andy Parks regarding the administrative charges that we have all been told are allowed for agency operations. I do know there are, I can't imagine that 70 cities and counties in Oregon are all operating illegally. And so there has to be some type of documentation or something. And I've looked at several today. And so I know they're all doing it, or at least a large number of them are doing it. So we should be able to document that as what Mr. Williams has asked for. And I would love to hear about that from our attorney. I will say, moving forward, I do think that we could be more transparent in my research today. So I would like to propose that if we move forward, we move forward with an IGA between the city and the Urban Renewal Agency and have it formalize that relationship. If the city is going to continue providing administrative functions, I think that needs to be formalized. It needs to be very transparent and documented for everybody to see. Then I also noticed that many of the urban renewal districts presented their budget in a different way. They had an operating fund and a debt service fund, and you could transfer funds in between them. And so I think maybe that was also, I'd be interested to know if that's a best practice, since I saw that repeated multiple times, and maybe that's a question for Andy Parks. So I'll stop there and let Ms. Richter and perhaps Mr. Parks answer those questions.
So Andy, do you want to go first, or?
Sure, Ms. McGriff. Yeah, with respect to an IGA, I think that's an excellent suggestion to go ahead and get that formalized. I think that as a best practice within the urban renewal arena that would lay out the methodology, the method of charges and so forth for the agency. With respect to creating separate funds, we're often seeing that I've set those up in several communities myself with respect to a general fund that's basically the fund where you do your activities, your projects, and so forth, and then a separate debt service fund that is doing the debt. With respect to the management of the debt, that can be, as I believe the city manager Conkle mentioned yesterday, there are two components within the ORS that speak to debt that is issued and debt that is incurred. Debt issued is the form of bond proceeds, loans, etc. Debt incurred would be the creation, say, and use of, say, an IGA, where there are services performed and ultimately to be paid for, or services with respect to like our professional services agreement. No, that's an incurred obligation that is also covered under the statutes. So I think those are the three things I think that you mentioned. Was there another?
No, I think that was it.
Okay.
Do you have an ORS reference or anything for the debt issued versus debt incurred, or where that's defined?
Yes, I do. And it was included in our memorandum. I don't have it right at my fingertips, but it was included in our memorandum, the latest one that you have.
Okay.
Mr. Conkle, do you have anything you'd like to add to that before Ms. Richter weighs in?
I do not. Thank you.
Carrie, do you have anything to add? Just grabbing your memo that was just behind the computer.
I believe the statutory reference that perhaps we're looking for is ORS 457455. But I'm kind of playing tag team here with Mr. Kabizman. So if that's not what you all were talking about yesterday, I apologize.
We can circle back and get and make sure we're citing the correct ORS. I just want to convey to Mr. Williams and the public that we do feel like the actions that we're taking are backed by Oregon revised statutes. And again, I did a lot of looking when I was supposed to be working today at other urban renewal agencies, their documents. I provided a sample IGA to Mr. Conkle and Mr. Graham from the city of Salem that I thought read really nice, that it was on their website, which I loved. It was very transparent that there was a relationship between the municipality and the urban renewal agency. So I think this is an example of one way we can help to address the opponent's concerns and try to be more transparent and just be more clear about the structure of the agency and how funds are moving and what's allowed. I'll stop there.
Are there any comments from the other commissioners? If there aren't, I'll just jump in. My experience has been that my former employer, Portland Development Commission, has an agreement with the city of Portland. And because it's a separate agency, not containing any elected or appointed officials as a combination, it is a little bit of anomaly. It's really the only one. Most of the jurisdictions, I think Mr. Parks will back me up, are their urban renewal agencies are a combination of electeds and citizens, and some are just electeds, period. So that is a different circumstance, but it does not hurt to formalize the relationship. I think at one time when the urban renewal agency was larger, and I think this predates Commissioner Smith, when the urban renewal agency was just the city commissioners, they did have some sort of an agreement back in the day that made it very clear that they were separate. And then it's evolved and changed over the years, going back from an elected body to elected and appointed to where we are today. So I think that would probably be an excellent idea. And I guess I would like to see whether there's concurrence by some of the other commissioners. How do they do it in Lake Oswego, Sean?
I believe there's an IGA.
Yeah.
And as far as what the debt incurred, we do pay a lot. Just that we had one of our districts of our two actually collected funds for quite a few years before a project started, because you don't even have the bonding capacity. So I'd say most urban renewal districts actually do collect debt. I mean, TIF funds.
TIF, yes.
Yeah, to actually pay for a project initially until they build up enough TIF capacity to actually issue debt to pay debt service. And then even when you issue debt, you're going to have a coverage ratio that's probably like 125%. So, you're still going to have that 25% that's going to be paying from TIF straight into a project as well. So, but yeah, as far as, so I can't see why we wouldn't want to collect all of the TIF that we're entitled to, assuming we have or knowing that we have over $100 million worth of projects. But
that is one way it's being done. I remember when the Lentz Urban Renewal District was created, obviously they did not have any money to do projects the first year. So they bonded for the project list and then spent waiting till the funds accumulated so they could start paying it back. But that was a very complicated transaction when they created a brand new district. And the expectations was there were going to be projects the next year. Again, was quite unusual. Mr. Neely, do you have any comments about creating an IGA?
No, I have no problem with it. I think it's a great idea.
Mr. O'Donnell?
If you're asking me about some comments about the budget and what we're about to do, I spoke loud and clearly last night, and certainly in the minority along with Commissioner Rocky Smith. I felt, and I still feel, that we need to listen to the voters and what they said. I think they're willing to support urban renewal. And I know that we all the members of this commission and the elected officials sitting here believe in urban renewal, but I also want to acknowledge the direction given by the community. And as such, we talk about project lists. The project list is out of date. It's not really a viable list at this time. We talked about a process where we establish a vision and identify specific projects and furtherance of that vision and establish an order in which we complete those projects. And I think that would be a good process. As far as the collection of TIF, I truly felt that we should suspend collection of TIF for one fiscal year until such time as we can go before the community and say, here's what we propose to do. So that's all I need to say. It was just a repetition of last night for those that weren't here. And certainly I'll be voting accordingly. So
thank you. But my question to you was, would you support a creation of a separate IGA from the city to the urban renewal district?
Certainly, yes.
Okay. Mr. Smith, same question for you.
I'm open to that conversation, but that has no effect on my decision tonight.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to get a read and how you felt about it. Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Okay. And I know, Sean, you already said yes. So, okay. All right. So back to the second question at hand is
Mr. Parks has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Andy. I see you.
Yeah, and thank you. I just wanted to follow up and give you the ORS related to the acquisition of funds is 457.1903C lowercase c uppercase b. And specifically, it just reads the maximum amount of indebtedness that may be issued or incurred under the plan, and then it goes on. So again, issued or incurred is the key phrase there, in terms of being a legitimate cost of the district. And I believe the plan itself does have administrative costs included in the plan, and that's those types of costs that would be incurred for such a district like Oregon City, where you do not have a paid staff person in place or staff. and you're using a number of city staff to fulfill responsibilities, as the mayor mentioned last night. And then with respect to the TIF itself, as mentioned last night, I mean, we do a lot of work throughout the state and, and elsewhere. Within Oregon, we're unaware of any urban renewal agency that has levied less than the maximum TIF. And one last point I would remind the board is the maximum indebtedness that's in the plan, the 130,100,000, is in constant dollars. So every year you go without spending those dollars, your buying power is reduced.
Can you just repeat the ORS citation one more time?
Sure, 457.1903CB.
Got it. Thank you. Want to make sure I wrote it down correctly because I was writing it really fast. So we've heard from Commissioner O'Donnell with regard to the request on the resolution. Do we have any other comments? And again, I'm watching the clock. Mr. O'Donnell?
Just to elaborate on what Andy said, the statement about our buying power being reduced is a function of inflation and increased cost, I believe is what he's trying to say. That certainly the time value of money equation that says money now is worth more than money later. And I think that's, if he disagrees with that explanation, chime back in. Thanks.
Commissioner Lyle-Smith?
Thank you. So just two items. The first one regarding the vote and our idea of taking something to the vote. We've tossed around that idea as a way of kind of getting the community's affirmation that we're heading in the right direction. I think that it would behoove this group to have a work session to talk about that item by itself, or have that as an agenda item with legal counsel. And so let's talk about, what are the legal implications of taking something to the ballot, being really careful about that. I think we should really know all the pros and cons about that before we try to say, absolutely, that's the path forward. I think there's several of us that have voiced a consideration of that, but I would like to hear from the legal department. And I don't think it's a topic for tonight, but I would recommend that as a future topic as we move forward to try to determine some of our next steps. And then I do have a remaining question about the budget, and this is probably for Matt Zook. When I look at the budget, sorry, I got to find my right tab. There it is. In the proposed budget for 21, 22, and 22, 23, the TIF revenues are coming
Send something to the printer.
as operating contingency, and but it looks like there is a bucket there for reserved for future expenditure. I'm trying to figure out why the TIF and the operating contingency. And is that a plan that at the end of the budget, we would do a transfer, or we would just move those funds to reserve from future expenditure? Or why wouldn't they just go into that reserve for future expenditure, at least for the initial year of the biennium? Because we're not sure, as we've talked about, whether or not we'll get projects off the ground in this first year of the biennium.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lyle-Smith. The reason that we chose the contingency line item rather than the reserve for future expenditure is that reserve for future expenditure is essentially saying we don't plan to spend it all in this biennium. I do anticipate, and I wanted the flexibility for the commission, the UR commission, to be able to access these funds if they identify a project and move forward. But that's essentially what you can move. If the budget was in reserve for future expenditures, you could still access it and move it up with the supplemental budget. So it's really a minor nuance about whether it's an operating contingency versus reserve for future expenditure. other than the fact that my interpretation of reserve is that we truly anticipate reserving this for a future biennium, not potential for spending in this month.
Okay.
Mr. Conkle, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Matt summarized it appropriately. I think it was trying to represent the intentions that we were hearing from the Urban Renewal Agency of a desire to adopt a plan, a revised plan, and potentially move with projects. So knowing that, it's hard to justify putting it into a fund that we would essentially be saying we don't think we're going to need this money. But as Matt said, we could put in a different line item if that's the pleasure of the district, and we'll deal with it at a later date.
Okay, I guess I'll just comment really quick. I feel like it's connected to that conversation of us collecting TIF revenues as to whether or not we have projects. We know we have a project list, and it's hard to project the future of. I guess a follow-on question is, hypothetically, if we had a project that came in, say, in March or April, and we knew we wanted to, I guess, consider urban renewal dollars for it, we would still do bonding and have to go out to a vote about the bond and all of that, correct? So we probably wouldn't need that money until the following fiscal year. Is that an accurate kind of hypothetical scenario or what?
I suppose another hypothetical could be that you end up into an agreement where you spend the money within 1 year and you don't need to bond it because you have cash on hand.
Okay.
So, I mean, hypothetically, there's a lot there's multiple ways that could happen. If it was, we needed $20 million, obviously we don't have that cash on hand. If we needed $2 million, we have that cash on hand, and we could enter into an agreement and allocate those funds more quickly if that was the desire of the Urban Renewal Agency.
Okay, I got you. That's helpful. I'm trying to
Yep.
sure we all understand, including including myself, of the potential of the holding money or not collecting revenues versus collecting revenues and potential projects and some scenarios of what we're essentially projecting into the future what we think will happen in the next year and trying to make some decisions on that now. So, okay, thanks.
I think what you're trying to say is we're trying to make an educated guess about what we might be doing, and based on the information we have today. And obviously, Mr. Zook, we do have the option, I think, as you just said, to make a budget, but a supplemental budget and make a modification at that time. Are you proposing that as a budget modification, Mayor Lyle Smith?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence because, Sean, am I muted?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. Under one scenario, I'm thinking, well, we probably won't spend that money. So why don't we just go ahead and move it into at least the first year and move it into that reserve for future projects. But then in Tony's scenario, I can envision that if we actually got moving forward, I could think of some projects with some downtown properties, for example, that we've talked about, we've heard proposals on that we might be willing to move on before the end of the year. Quiet zones in one of that. There's a couple of properties like I mentioned. So bathrooms in downtown Oregon City. I would love to get some of those projects moving if we talk about them and we decide that's and do all the work to put the framework in place. So I guess I'm fine leaving it there. But I'm on the fence. If somebody else has a strong opinion, I would be fine to move it to the reserve for future funding too.
Mr. Cross, I saw your regular hand and your yellow hand.
Yeah, no, I would suggest just leaving it in the operating. It's really more of a budget law functionality of both of them. If you don't spend it, it just falls into ending fund balance. It's really just ending balance. If you leave it in the operating, you're actually able to move 15% of the total expenditures with just a budget adjustment, which is just it's a lot less work than a supplement. You don't have to post it. You don't have to have a public hearing, and it's for smaller amounts of money. Either way, if you're going to do a project, these are both going to require a supplemental budget with most likely a public hearing. So it just leaves the more flexibility. If there's a smaller amount of money, say $100,000, $110,000 to get a project going, you can move that without having to actually do a supplemental budget. Either way, it all just falls into the ending balance. As far as year 1 and year 2, we're really just looking at the biennium budget. It's nicely broken out for us here as a year 1 and year 2. So you'll see in the biennium, the ending balance really is just for that of year 2. And the beginning balance is just that of year 1. Everything else is really just for you and I to actually be able to see a 2-year budget separate, but we're really looking at a 2-year budget. So we're really only talking about the 2-year budget.
So are any others, does anybody else have a suggestion for any budget modifications? So it looks like we may be ready for a possible motion. I think staff has at least at this point in time, a direction to put together an IGA. I know we didn't vote on it specifically, but I heard a consensus by asking everyone. So do we have any a motion that we'd like to bring forward? Mayor Lyle Smith.
Sure. I got one question. The resolution, the potential motion on the resolution of UR 21-01, that just making that motion on that resolution, just for clarity's sake, is that is incurring or gathering the maximum amount of tax increment revenues? Trying to see that.
Correct. That is correct.
He's nodding.
Okay.
That was the recommendation from the budget committee, was the $9,701,811 approved budget. And the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised per section 1C, article 9 of the Oregon Constitution and Oregon Revised Statute, chapter 457. So yes.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll say, I think we have a lot of work to do. I think we have a lot of work to do to talk to the opponents of urban renewal, to talk about vision, to talk about projects, to talk about how we can improve urban renewal. But I do feel like at this point in time, we have a budget that we need to move forward. And so to me, this is a point in time knowing that we can make changes and we still have more time to, we can still close down the district if we wanted to, in the next few months, if that was the decision we ended up with. So again, for me, this is a point in time decision to move forward so that we can keep progressing urban renewal. So therefore, I'll make the motion to approve resolution number UR 21-01.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
There's seconded by Mr. Neely. Is there any discussion or shall we call for the question?
Call for the question.
Okay, seeing none, we'll call for the question. Ms. Riggs, you call the roll.
Yes, Commissioner Sean Cross,
Aye.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Doug Neely,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
No.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
No.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
No.
and Chair Denise McGriff.
Yes, so that's
It's 4-3, so the
Okay.
motion passes.
the motion passes. All right. So second on our agenda. Yes, did somebody say something or did I miss that? Okay. So next on our agenda is a discussion item regarding the contract amendment with Leland Consulting Group. Do we have any further questions? We had a brief discussion about this yesterday about what we wanted to do. And I think the consensus was that There may or may not be in the next 2 months, some items that we want them to do, but we need to determine what those two things, a couple of things are, if there's two things, and then how to move that forward. So we kind of, the way we structured this contract, as you recall, and it was quite eloquently stated by Mr. Conkle, was that we had two parts. We had an A version and a B version, but we have a maximum amount, which is the total contract. And so we can do, we can move forward some things, or as Commissioner O'Donnell talked about yesterday, he said, well, we might want to put it on hold, but I think Commissioner Lyle Smith made a compelling argument that the contract expires in August and it's not too many months away. So if we have something we'd like them to investigate, we probably should go ahead and be looking at that. And then August, we can make a determination about where we want to go next, if we go to next steps. So are there any thoughts?
Commissioner O'Donnell had his hand up first.
Mr. O'Donnell, the person that I like to call on often.
I stand by my comments last night. I've got no qualms about utilizing these folks in the future. I just think it's a question of timing and when we utilize them. And if we're going to be up against a hard stop in a short period of time, I would conclude the contract short of its total value at this point and re-engage when we had something specific that they could contribute to. The two scenarios you talked about are in the city report, one of which they're not really correct at this point in time. It was like either, I forget what the first one was, but the second one was close the district. Well, we're not prepared to close the district, but we're kind of in limbo as to what we want to do. So I've got no qualms about re-engaging them, but for cleanliness, I would conclude the contract short of its ultimate value and be prepared to reopen it, because I don't see us making essentially a lot of progress in the next 60 days. End of comment.
Mayor Lyle Smith.
Thank you. So I'm looking back at the contract to try to figure out if there were any items that were proposed in that option. Option B was closing down the district and helping us do that. And I think option A was a list of other things. The only one that kind of looks interesting to me that they could help us with would be the final projects and programs list, since we've been talking about that for the last 2 days. It says the consultant team will review the project list, the city's assets, and the indebtedness and timeline of investments or closures. They'll collect information and confirm project costs. So I kind of feel like maybe an assessment of our current project list is warranted, and I'm not sure that they did that, but maybe that would help us in our update of the plan of knowing, you know, what do we need to know about our current project list if we want to make edits to it. That's the only task that I see on there that for me, I think might be worthwhile to consider to have them help us with.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm looking at the memorandum that we had on exploring next steps, and I would agree that, as I stated, I kind of went through the project list myself and gave comments to Mr. Graham about what I thought, from my standpoint, needed to be either deleted or updated. So we had on this list bond counsel, which that's not one of them, but updated financial projections and updated project costs and project planning. So I think two of the things that you talked about, Mayor Lyle Smith, to me, it will help me ascertain which projects that we have in the plan right now are still viable and which ones are not. And I think we need to know that based on current information as opposed to 2007 information. So, my support is that we proceed under option A and get those two items answered, so that will help us put together more information. Again, going back to talking to our constituents, both pro and con, about how we can get the information in a timely manner, help us make a decision to move forward with these things. So that's kind of my 2 cents about it. I also reviewed the contract again this afternoon, and that would be my suggestion.
So are you saying those last two items from the memo, update project cost and project planning?
Yes.
I think you need the financial projections as part of this.
Yes, that was one of them. It's, here, let me get my note again.
Right.
So can they do all of
Financial
those?
projections.
Yeah, can they do the financial projections, project costs and project planning in the time that's left?
I'm certain they can. I think the question is, can we come to agreement? I mean, I think the work can be done. Yes. I think the other part will be, if we had talked about last night, a vision, that everybody was going to bring their ideas of what that vision should be. I mean, if there's an order to this, or we choose not to follow that order, right? We could just say, we want to know on the financial projections, the project costs, and what project planning would look like. And then we would work on updating the plan or the vision or anything else that the Urban Renewal Agency decided that they wanted to work on. So I think the work can be done. Yes. Can there be where in that sequence, if we're comfortable going with that right away, we can.
I
But
think we already have some information that we can have Mr. Graham send out something to look at. And again, I agree, it's always easier to look at something and respond to it than, if you haven't thought of an idea yourself. And I think we can do that very simply by sending that out ahead of time and have everybody take a look at it. I mean, it's kind of like the first things that come to your brain, put it down, say, this is what you think about it. These are some of your goals. And I don't think that's rocket science. I think we can do that. I would agree, like to see them proceed with that work, because I think the vision is going to be simpler. At least my hope is that it's simpler than looking at the projections. So I see my colleague, Mr. O'Donnell, has his hand up. And get yourself off mute again. They should make that like a big red X, unmute.
Or a bullseye. Mr. Conkle is right. I mean, until such time as you define the projects, why would we study projects that we may or may not pursue? We talked about freshening up that project list, about giving direction about this Urban Renewal Commission, its electeds and its members leading instead of being pushed along and followed by others. So I don't understand why we'd want to spend money analyzing a list that's out of date when we should first furnish a list that's updated. I don't feel a simple email that says, take a look at this and what do you think is going to get us there. And as such, I don't think we can accomplish that within the time frame within which this contract ends, which is why I propose to end this contract, but certainly be prepared to re-engage these folks as we get a more defined course of action and defined projects.
I was only talking about the vision, not the project list being sent out by email, a vision statement.
I don't care what you're talking about. The project, what we needed was exactly what we talked about last night. A vision, a series of projects in support of it, an analysis of those projects, and a sequence in which we do them. I'm not operating at that 40,000 foot visionary level. That means nothing to the elected.
Any more discussion, or do we have a motion on what we want to do with the contract? Mayor Lyle Smith.
So maybe this is a question for staff or Andy. Has anyone created the criteria for and a proposed framework for reviewing projects and what a potential maybe citizen oversight committee might look like? Has there been anything put together on that as part of Leland's current project scope? And I apologize if I should know that answer, but I don't.
Citizen oversight possible. I'm not aware that we gave anybody direction to do that. That was the suggestion that you made, as I recall. But I know that staff has worked on the other part. So Mr. Graham is on and Mr. Conkle.
To answer the mayor's question, yes, there is a draft in the waiting for you to review in terms of a due diligence team, our suggested vision statement, goals, objectives, has been put together for your review and comment. Of course, you can change it. Anything there is changeable, but it's a way just to get started and have the conversation.
Okay.
Mr. Conkle, do you want to add to anything?
Nope, I do not. I think
Mr.
James
Cross.
summarized it.
So all we're doing here is not changing the maximum price that could be for the contract, but we're just looking at extending the time that the work can be done because we're not agreeing. So it's taking longer. Is that all we're really talking about?
No, we have, we need to, we have 2 outstanding payables and hang on, let me get the memo. So we need to extend the contract
Right here, but
and pay the 2 outstanding payables. And whether we want to ask them to do any work between now and the August 3rd deadline, which Commissioner Lyle Smith outlined very succinctly about what would be helpful to us. And I agree with that. So that is what's on the table.
So Commissioner Cross, the original was that we put an expiration of March 31st in the original contract. We initially came to the Urban Renewal Commission requesting that be extended to August 3rd to comply with the charter limitation. Debt is incurred over 1 year, needs to go to a vote. So we needed to complete this contract within less than 365 days. So that was the request, was to maintain the existing contract with the existing deliverables at the existing amount, just extend from March, the deadline, to the August deadline. That was the original. And the discussion has progressed to, do we need that work? Should we postpone the work? Should we not do everything that was in the original contract?
So I know generally a chairperson doesn't make a motion, but if I don't hear anything, I will make one just to get it on the table. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to move that we extend the contract with Leland Consulting Group and add the 2 items as outlined by Commissioner Lyle Smith, the financial projection and the updated project costs. We have 6:55. So, okay, I don't hear a second.
I'll second.
For discussion.
Second it.
No,
All
go
right.
ahead. Sean did.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All right, let's roll with the roll.
Okay, Sean Cross, Commissioner Sean Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Doug Neely. You're muted, Doug. Was that a yes? Yes, he's giving me a thumbs up. I'm
Thumbs
going
up.
to
I
say
think
yes
that's
for
his
him.
yes.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Yes.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
No.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
No.
and Chair McGriff.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, I'd like to call for a motion on the approval of the minutes of February 6, 2019. And I will tell you, I thought I'd gotten them mixed up with some other minute. I said, I thought we already approved those. Anyway, so I'll call for a motion, please, approval of the minutes.
So moved.
There's been a motion to approve the minutes of February 6, 2019. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cross. Let's have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Sean Cross,
Aye.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Doug Neely,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Abstain.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Abstain.
Chair Denise McGriff.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your indulgence tonight. I know we have a lot of work to do, and I will look forward to seeing you in a few moments at our next meeting. Shall we take a
Chair McGriff.
break, Mayor Smith? Would that be fine?
Well, yeah, we'll start at 7. We're still a little bit early. I would like to have the Urban Renewal Commission consider having the executive committee of the Urban Renewal Commission come together to talk about next steps and how do we move forward urban renewal as a team, planning future meetings and topics. If the committee would consider that, to just try to get organized.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I missed the beginning of that. Have the what come together?
The urban renewal executive team.
Is that staff or the electeds?
Excuse me?
Is you saying the staff or the electeds?
It's in our bylaws of who the executive committee is. It is the chair, vice chair. I already closed it. Sorry.
Yeah, I just had it open too. I'm sorry. I closed mine down as well. I'm sorry.
You know, it was just an effort because I feel like we've been all over the place for 2 days, and
Yeah.
feel like we need to have a group that's trying to we've heard everything from the whole commission. You know, lots of comments, and maybe just a core group that meets with staff to talk about what do our future agendas look like. That's what that executive committee is for. How do we kind of get organized and plan maybe some future discussion items as a team? And so I just wanted to throw that out for consideration. And I
Is that
don't,
something that you would consider, Mr. Cross, since you're the vice chair? And let's see, do we have a secretary of the Urban Renewal Commission? Is that you, Adam?
Well, so the executive committee, the mayor, the chair, and the vice chair shall comprise the executive committee of the Urban Renewal Commission. They shall assist and advise the manager where requested in Urban Renewal Commission business matters, Urban Renewal Commission briefings, project reviews, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, well, you have 3 of us that are supporting that, so I will ask Mr. Conkle to help make it so with Mr. Graham's assistance, and we will do that. For your information, I've started meeting on a regular basis with Mr. Graham to basically just talk about urban renewal in general, not to make any decisions, but to talk about it from the standpoint of, you know, what does it look like here? You know, what are my ideas? What are my thoughts? I mean, we're just having a general discussion. It's not any decision making, but we will do that. So thank you all. And I guess as a consensus, we'll consider this meeting adjourned.